In this episode, we're going to cover 22 ways that you can guarantee that you're going to burn out and burn out fast and hopefully stay burned out for as long as possible. Now, why would we do this? Well, I want to introduce this concept of inverted thinking. Sometimes, and I didn't come up with this, I got it from someone else, but sometimes when there's something that you want, it can actually be a little bit easier to figure out what to do by flipping it and looking at what shouldn't I do, or what is the way that I can guarantee to not get this thing that I want, and then do the opposite. So that's what we're going to do in this episode today. We're going to talk about all these things that you can do just to guarantee that you are going to burn out.
Welcome to the Jesus Coffee Yoga podcast, where we sit down with teachers, leaders, instructors just like yourself and resource you and empower you with the tools that you need to build the business, build the brand, build the ministry that God has called you to around the life that you live.
So if you would love to know how to burn out, why don't you grab a cup of coffee or some tasty warm beverage, grab a chair, and let's chat.
I want to say, before we get into our list, I think we had this was probably my favorite episode to plan for. Like, it just kept coming out of us. We were just like, this is a way to burn out. This is a way to burn out. And I could see myself in several of the things that we are about to talk about. But it was actually like really energizing to kind of put language around some of these things. So hopefully it'll be very helpful for you guys, but us.
Method number 1 to make sure that you burn out as fast as possible and stay burned out as long as possible is avoid rest, and make sure you pack in as much as you can into your schedule so your day is just slammed with so much stuff. You're getting so much done. And for sure, ignore the Sabbath. This is kind of like a bonus under this one. Definitely don't Sabbath. That's Old Testament stuff. You don't need that. We need to be productive and get as much done as we can. So things like physical rest, for sure, you don't need that. But also mental rest. You don't need to give your brain a break. Just always be thinking, always processing. Don't give your brain a break. You don't need that. Get more done. And then social rest. Make sure your social calendar is just packed. All right. You don't need rest away from gatherings and parties and events and just pack as much in as you can.
The next thing that you should do to burn out is to say yes to absolutely everything. Like, forget boundaries. If you have boundaries, just break them. Like, they're not important. You definitely don't want to offend anybody by holding a boundary or saying no to protect your rest and your own peace, right? Because that's what earns their affection, their love, and their friendship. So do whatever it takes to say yes to everything. And number 3, you're going to want to avoid building true community and deeper connections. You don't want to have anyone see the real you and step in and help you when you don't even know you need help. So if you can just avoid, like, socially, go ahead and just burn out, like filling your space with other people, but definitely don't build any true connection or community with them.
Yeah, keep it really surface level. Don't go deep, because you don't want to be known, and you don't want to know others. Like, who has time for that?
You just want to carry it all by yourself.
Number 4, don't plan. Like, don't plan anything, and especially don't use like a calendar system or something to kind of help you keep track of what's going on and when it's going on. Like, you don't need that. Just try to remember it all in your head.
Number 5, you're going to want to prioritize productivity and achievement over everything else. Relationships and anything you might actually want to do. Like, definitely don't do those things. You're just going to want to run just full speed as fast as you can to get all the things done, whether you want to or not. Number 6, whatever you do, don't play. Like, don't invite play into your life, because that's wasting precious time and energy on fun things when you could be getting more done, right? More productivity. So like reading books, getting in nature, learning something new, laughing, it is all underrated.
Yeah, it's just such a waste of time when we could just get more stuff done. Again, see point number 5.
Number 7, flood yourself with a constant, and I do mean constant. I mean, like, if you have any ounce of free time, pull out your phone. You want that constant stream of information and mental stimulation. After all, idle hands are the tools of the devil. So always keep your mind engaged in something, the news, the noise, and never let it have time to drift and dream.
Yeah, that's really good. And you need to know what's going on in the world, right? Heaven forbid something happens somewhere over in Africa or, somewhere else that has nothing to do with you. You need to know about that. That way you can worry about it and let it affect your day and make you feel worse about something you have absolutely no control over. So definitely do that. Number 8, do not prioritize self-care. Don't work out, just eat whatever you want, whenever you want. Just, do whatever's easiest, but not what's best for you. Because again, we don't want to be uncomfortable. It takes so much time. Again, that's time away from what we could be producing and creating things and achieving more. So just there's no time for that. All right. Don't worry about it.
Number 9, if you are feeling anxious or unsettled, just ignore it. Like you can avoid it by numbing with things like doom scrolling, drugs or alcohol, Netflix binging, whatever you do, like don't give any attention to that anxious or unsettled feeling. Just stay so busy that you have no time to think about it.
Yeah, and I really want to emphasize too to for sure drink a lot of alcohol and frequently. Like if you got to numb it, like numb it. You're feeling something, it's a little uncomfortable, like hit that bottle right away. Okay,
Just
don't.
check out.
Yeah, yeah, numb it. All right, number 10, try to do everything on your own. Don't hire it out. Don't get help from other people because you don't want to waste money on that. Like that's money you could use for, buying other things or paying bills or whatever. Like you don't need other people's help. You can do everything yourself.
Number 11, neglect your spiritual life and your relationship with God. You would not want to bring your petty things to God, right? You don't want to seek biblical counsel, and you definitely don't want to read the Bible. So skip church because that also helps.
Yeah, definitely skip church. I mean, that's more time you could spend doing things, right? So you don't need that. Okay, so number 12, this one is really important. Sleep the bare minimum to function. I mean, you need a little bit of sleep so you don't die. But other than that, like don't waste the time. That's more time you could be using to get things done and to be productive. I mean, really, like you can sleep when you die. You don't need to sleep.
Number 13, play not to lose. Okay, so you just want to play it safe so that you don't experience failure.
We don't want failure because that's saying something about us that we're not enough, that there's something wrong with us. So we definitely don't want to feel like a failure. And so that's just the best way to avoid that is just not trying things where we might fail. Number 14, live for number 1, numero uno. Take care of yourself and put yourself first over everyone else because a life that's lived selfishly is just so fulfilling and it just feels so good to always make sure that you get what you want and not worrying about what other people want because that doesn't matter. They can worry about themselves, right? They need to put themselves first. We put ourselves first. That just feels so much better.
Yeah, be a consumer and not a contributor. Like you don't want to make any sacrifices because we don't have any time, right? Like we don't have any extra time and mental energy to go out of our way to help each other. So if you don't watch out for you, who will?
Plus, sacrifice is really uncomfortable and we don't want to be uncomfortable. Number 15, always pursue more because what you have is never enough. So whether it's money, cars, your house, clothes, vacations, just anything, like just you need more because the more stuff is what's really fun and fulfilling and makes for a really, really fulfilling life is to just get more crap.
Yeah, just keep adding stuff, things, people. You don't want to delete anything from your life or minimalize anything.
All right, number 16, always compare. Compare yourself to other people, especially in like what they have versus what you have, whether it's in physical things or maybe their giftings or their callings or what they do for work or maybe their spouse. Just whatever you can, just compare so that you have a target for like, okay, that's what they have. I don't have that. So now I know what I need to work for. I can prioritize the productivity and making sure I'm working hard to get those things. And, just having that want, that way, when you know what you don't have, it'll motivate you to work even harder to get those things and to close the gap of what you don't have.
And whatever you do, don't be grateful for any of the blessings that you already have. Just focus on what you don't have. Number 17, every season definitely needs to be a grind season. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Ignore the seasons and the changes that come along with them and don't ever make time to slow down after periods of pushing hard. Red line always to make sure that you're producing as much as possible.
Yeah, this one is key. Otherwise, you're not going to get done, everything that you could get done. So for sure, pedal to the metal all the time. Number 18, avoid organization and systems. You want everything to be scattered and cluttered and as manual as possible. Everything should take as much time as possible. Well, hey, then we can stay really busy, right? Busy doing stuff. Because our brains are capable of holding on to so much information at once. So it's just best to just let your brain do that and don't worry about trying to get organized.
Number 19, speaking of worry, you should do it constantly. Constantly worry and think about the worst case scenario. Think about how bad it could be. Dream up of all the ways that it could go wrong and why you shouldn't do something. Just don't forget to worry.
Number 20, be perfect. Okay. Strive for perfection because we all know perfection is attainable. You can be perfect in everything. So really push really hard to be perfect. Don't put stuff out there when it's not ready. Even if it takes longer to get it done, that's okay. Let's make sure that it's perfect. Number 21, procrastinate and distract yourself from the important things. The things that move the needle, the hard things, the uncomfortable things. Like, no, don't do that. We don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to feel good. We want to be comfortable. So spend a lot of time either just not doing the thing that needs to get done and doing something else, especially if it's easier. Just do that. Just stay busy with other things. And really, for sure, like this is a bonus underneath this one, avoid any sort of accountability with the things that move the needle. Okay, you don't want that. You don't want someone looking over your shoulder trying to help you stay on track with the things that you said you were going to do. Like forget that. Just push that aside and just focus on the things that don't really move the needle.
The last one, number 22, avoid God's calling on your life and the purpose that He has given you because it's too hard. It's scary. You might have to sacrifice or get out of your comfort zone. So definitely just play safe and pretend that God hasn't designed a purpose and a calling for your life.
Okay, so obviously this is all tongue in cheek and this is just ridiculous. But
we
what's
we
what's
had to
funny is
stop and laugh a couple
yeah,
times.
yeah, there've been a few times where I'm like, I got to read that again because I'm losing it because like it's an area that I struggle with. So
Same.
obviously this is just ridiculous. And what we're gonna do, let's go step by step of everything that we read through, and let's talk about the things that we really should be doing that will help us avoid burnout or maybe get out of burnout if we're feeling that.
I think I want to mention here there's a scripture in the Bible when I think about burnout, and I use this sometimes in my class when I can tell students are getting, or maybe just, someone even just in that class is kind of at that red line just in their life or what, even just in their practice. But I love the scripture from Matthew 11:28 through 30. And it's from the Message version, which I really love kind of the way they wrap language around this. It says, "Are you tired, worn out, burn out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me and watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." And then he goes on to say, "I won't lay anything heavy or ill fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." And I think in seasons of burnout, it's hard for me to digest those words because that means I have to kind of take my own pride and my own ego and my own independence and truly like depend on him to show me a different way or to give me the rest like that that I need or whatever that is. And then the discipline to enforce it, to do it, right? So I like this scripture so much for this topic, especially because we are not promised easy. We're not promised a pain-free life. We're not promised a stress-free life, but we are promised a way out or a way through, right? And this is Jesus's words promised to us, like that there is another way. And so I think for me personally, this is something that I really, really, there's that push and pull with God, even when it comes personal, business, all of it, when it comes to burning out.
So before we get further into what we can do to avoid burnout, I think we can just touch on like maybe what are the signs and symptoms? Like how do I know I'm nearing burnout, or how do I know maybe I'm already there? What would you say are some tells that you're headed that way or you are there?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for each person and maybe even each person in each season, right? So for me, I know that I'm nearing burnout when like my impulse control is lower. So I struggle to not just be like, just get it done or, even just impulsively, just in my personal habits and things like that. Like I'm just need to like get there, just get there. And I know like I'm not at a sustainable pace if I'm just looking for the finish line. And there is a time like, where we have those push goals right in front of us. And I think that's really important. And we talk about that a lot in different episodes and things like that. But sometimes I'll put that push goal right there and I'll burn myself out trying to get to it because I shouldn't be running that fast towards the goal. I need the systems and the people and the things around. I need the other things to kind of balance. And I use that word very liberally because balance is kind of a myth, but like to kind of equalize that. So for me, just in practical ways, I am kind of rushing things maybe. I feel a lack of desire to do the things that usually make me very excited or happy or at peace. I am irritable to be around, like especially my close people, so like my family and things like that. Like I can just be a little bit short and sharp. I don't want to plan things. So I'm very much one of my top 5 strengths. We did the Gallup Strengths Finder a long time ago. And one of my top 5 strengths is activator and futuristic and strategy. So those 3, when I recognize I'm not looking for the future, because that is something that's natural to me, like, okay, we're here. What's next? Like I have hope. I'm excited. When that's low or like quiet in my mind and my heart, and I'm not like excited to meet new people or bring in new people, how can I reach new people or try new things or develop my teams or whatever that is, I know that I'm like getting to burnout because I just don't have it in the tank. So those are a couple of things for me that indicate like, hey, you're redlining. Like you're getting to a point where you're not recharging enough. You're not connected to the vine, so to speak. Like I'm not getting like the spiritual, recharge that I need. And it just manifests in so many different ways.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, it's very similar. A lot of those things, same for me. I think sometimes it's different. It can be a different purpose, but like with what I'm doing, if I'm just feeling like really bored, like, and maybe that manifests differently. Like I will distract myself a
I was going to
lot.
say procrastination. Yeah.
Yeah, procrastinate or like I just don't want to do this stuff anymore. Not it's not because it's hard necessarily. What's hard is making myself do it when I don't want to do it because it's just
Hmm.
boring. And so sometimes that's something I fight. I have some ADHD tendencies. I've never been officially diagnosed, but like when you look at like here's the symptoms, I'm like, oh, that's me.
Check.
And so some I'm fighting that a lot of times of just like
Apathy,
the
kind of.
yeah, and just like new and exciting like novelty, some chasing that. And sometimes I will procrastinate or distract myself or even just picking up my phone, like distracting myself with something that even going on social media because I need it for business. Like, but is that what I'm doing right now? No. So
No, just lying to
um,
myself.
yeah. So for me, though, like the biggest indicator is probably like you had said, just feeling so tired and worn out and not excited and being irritable. Like it almost mirrors what you could look at symptoms are for depression, and maybe not clinical depression, but like you go through like seasons of kind of feeling blue or a non-clinical depression kind of phase, and I think sometimes they might be similar, and maybe you mix them up. Like I feel like I'm depressed, like maybe I'm just burned out because I've been pushing too hard. Like you'd said, not excited about things that normally excite me. Like I love to mountain bike, and there are times where I'm like, man, like I would love to go mountain bike, but I just can't get myself to do it. And I don't know why. Like I'm just feeling kind of like apathetic about something that normally I'm super excited about doing, and that brings me a lot of joy and health benefits.
And mental benefits as well.
Yeah, it's like a moving meditation because I have to be in the moment or I'll hit a tree and die. So
Let's not do that.
and really, burnout can be on a macro level and a micro level. So you might be going through a season of burnout, and we call that like a macro, a large scale season of burnout, where it's just been a long season of grinding and just feeling like this. And you might have micro burnout, where it's just kind of like day to day, where the bulk of your days are fine, or this overall season of life is fine, but maybe you might have days here and there where you're feeling a little burned out. And that can feel and look a little bit different too.
I think that's really good that you mentioned that because I'm actually in this moment reflecting on my own life. So like this season, like I've gone through those seasons, especially in grief or loss. My counselor told me that it's like everything that you normally do is like 30% harder. So when I used to train and run a lot, they told us on windy days, if you run, it's like running with a parachute. So you're training against the wind, right? And it's like running with a parachute. That's hard. It's like I run every day or 4 times a week or whatever. But today it just feels really hard to do something that I normally do. And you are building strength and things like that. But I just remember her saying, like, this is your normal day to day things, getting your kids ready for school, whatever. I think that we need to recognize those seasons where our energy, our normal energy, if nothing changes physically, mentally, with your food or your exercise, because I've gone through that where I've literally just stuck with my same routines, my same habits, all of that. And everything just felt so hard. And like I was just hitting burnout quicker, with everything. Like I just was like, I don't have it in me to do this podcast today or to do whatever. But then I'm in a season right now where like, if I step back, like the big things of my life are going okay or well or whatever. But on the day to day, like my kids are all home. I feel like by 6 o'clock in the evening, I am burnt out from the constant engagement with them, constantly moving them around the town, like, trying to still work in 45-minute chunks. And it's like, I'm burnt out on the daily, but on a bigger scale. Like it's like a sunburn versus like getting burned in a fire. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I feel like I'm getting sunburned right now. So I think that's really important and really good to kind of say, like, am I burnout because these things have happened in my life as a whole and everything just feels heavier and harder to get to and get through. So I need like a different kind of rest. Maybe I stop teaching, maybe I stop whatever it is, or am I just burnout on a day-to-day basis? And I'm going to change my daily routine to make space for me to recover. Like right now, my sleep score is real high, like since my injury and all of that. And then now that the kids are home, I'm done. Like after 6 o'clock, I'm like, I'm off limits. Bye. We've been hanging out all day. And I'm sleeping like 7 to 8 hours a night, which is not normal for me. 7 to 9 hours actually, because my body is just, we're trying to recharge. Like that's our recharge time. So I think that's really good to point out.
Yeah. And maybe those micro feelings are a good indication you're headed towards a season of burnout. And so there might be red flags in there for you to pull you back in, and just at least make you reflect and evaluate. Am I headed towards a macro burnout? And if so, what do I need to change to get there? So why don't we go into our points? We'll flip them, and just kind of talk through like why is it important to do these things.
Number one was rest. So something I started doing about probably 5 or 6 years ago, really probably even longer than that when I was doing hair. I remember after the weekends, like we were really involved in our church. And at some point my husband became like a pastor on staff. And so Sundays, is like a high energy adrenaline, especially Nick, like being on the worship team. It's like, you go up, 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 get really excited, really awesome. And then you come back down. And it's just this up and down all day because we have multiple services. And I remember on Monday just being like, I felt like I was just weekend hungover. Like I was just energetically hungover. And so I started taking half of a Monday off where I didn't do anything until noon. And then eventually I took all of Mondays off. And so then I started like realizing how recharging that was for me. And I started scheduling rest and downtime. And I would say 80% success rate of sticking to it. So, and again, this has to change with your life seasons. Right now, I don't get my scheduled downtime, which is usually about noon or 1 every single day for about 2 hours because my kids are home. Everybody's home. We're running around. We're doing all the things. So I have to that's why now it's like after about 6 o'clock, it's every man for themselves, right? Like mom is off. These are my downtime, and my downtime just looks different right now. So scheduling it in, you've got your physical rest. So like we talked about, that is going to be like getting enough sleep, getting enough non-active time. Now, listen, I am a huge like fan of get your steps in every day, like have a good step goal. Like, especially those of us, like if we sit at a desk for a couple of hours a day, like make sure you're moving, get your physical rest, but your mental rest, turn off your phone, turn off the dings and pings, put it on airplane mode, let everybody know you're alive, and give yourself a mental break from your phone, from any information that's coming at you through a screen or maybe even not a screen. Mental rest. And then social, like for those of us, even I would even say for those of you who are even extroverts, which means you get energy by being around people, you can still be drained, especially if you're not around, I don't want to say the right people, but like extroverts can be school teachers, right? Like you're around people all day, but you're still pouring yourself out and giving. So making sure you're getting enough time without people in it, or maybe with the right type and amount of people. So making sure you're resting socially. So rest is really important. And I actually have my calendar right here. And I just went through and I chunked out office hours, teaching, all my, like, and I have these little squares throughout my week where it's like, this is a nothing, but they just look different in this season. So scheduling that in is really going to be a game changer for you.
Yeah, and there's one area I wanna go into, which is weird coming from a man, but in my video business, I have a client who, I have several, clients actually who are women, and one of them creates content for helping other women with various things, and she just had an interview with like a hormone expert, and she talked a lot about the phases of your cycle for you women, and how each cycle has different strengths, and I don't wanna call them weaknesses, but just areas to consider where maybe you might want to plan or you might want to do certain things in certain phases of your cycle because you're best suited for certain things. And there might be other phases of your cycle where you're not. And sometimes it's like you try to force a square peg in a round hole, or just in our modern society of just like go, go, go. And a lot of it's kind of built around like how men don't have those cycles. We actually have more like a daily cycle, but how it's just like every day, all day, 9 to 5, pedal to the metal. That's not healthy necessarily, depending
Yeah.
on where you're at in your cycle. There are phases where you're in more of a rest and recovery mode and more of an intuitive mode. And like so each one has kind of a different strength. And I can link to that episode. Actually, I don't know when it'll be live, but once it's out, I can link to that because I think it'd be really helpful if you're kind of new to that of kind of syncing your life activities to your cycle. It actually can be really, really life changing. And again, I'm quoting my client. I don't know because I don't have a cycle, but
Blessed. You are blessed. No, I think that's really like, and it kind of again goes back to like the way God created us, right? Like he didn't create us and put us in front of computers. He created us and put us in a garden. There's a cycle, there's the life cycle, there's the just kind of that rhythm of life. Like our bodies are designed to do these things in this time. Why aren't we paying attention? We're just ignoring the way we feel. And this is something that I feel like, especially as I age, like get a little more aware of like, it's okay that today is a scheduled workout, but I'm struggling with these things physically. I'm going to take off and go, tomorrow or later, or just do a walk or whatever. So I think that's a really good, a valid point that I hadn't thought of. So number 2 was setting and holding boundaries. If it's not a heck yeah, it's a no. And this is really hard, especially for those of us who are, I'm just going to say it, addicted to people pleasing, addicted to a need for approval or affirmation or validation. And I do think that there is a level of maybe some counsel and some healing that needs to happen in this. So I don't think it's always just as easy as I've always been kind of even just emotionally independent person. Like I haven't, and again, this probably comes from my childhood, which we are working through, but like I haven't always needed outside validation or affirmation or all of those things. So I feel like this comes a little bit more natural to me because I will set and hold a boundary, and I'm not like really sad if someone's disappointed because I recognize that's a thing for them. And it's like, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, or I don't mean to disapprove you. I don't know. Like, but boundaries are to protect us, right? Our boundaries are to keep us safe from the things that pull from us. And so this again kind of looks like maybe setting up more systems and schedules that you can hold and stick to, and just not saying yes to everything. And even when you're tempted, like I think we all know. So if I said, Nick, do you and Rachel want to go out to, I don't know, I'm trying to think like this random gala this weekend, knowing it's going to be time consuming, energy consuming, money, all of that. And you're not like, oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. It's like, you kind of already know, like, I don't want to bring cookies to my kids' class. Like I'll drop them off I'll drop them off if you want me to. But like, it's like those things that you say yes to because you feel like you should pay attention to that. pay attention to that and just get a little more practice saying no. Just practice saying, thank you for the invite. I appreciate that you asked me, but it's just not, I can't make that happen in this season or this week or whatever. And let them deal with their own emotions. You're not responsible for their opinion of you. Like, I'll say that again. You're not responsible for their opinion of you. And seek the necessary help, healing, treatment to heal those parts of you that feel like you need that, because at this point it's hurting you more than it's helping you.
And other people, sometimes this might show up as a lack of planning on someone else's part that then you feel like you have to take on and fix. So being a fixer, sometimes I can get some validation as being the guy that has the answers or being the one that can fix problems. And so I want to say yes, because one, because I actually do want to help people, but two, like it makes me feel good to help people fix problems. And like I also like being the guy you come to when like I got a problem, like Nick's the guy that I call. Or it could be a client who, because I've let it, I haven't set the boundaries and held the boundaries, their lack of planning has now become a problem for me. And now it throws me into this fit where I have to, not a fit, but now I have to work nights and I have to do all this extra work to hit a deadline because they didn't come to me in advance or they didn't plan and get me something in advance. So I've gotten better at that and saying like, look, I can't do that. You need to get things to me earlier than that because I just can't drop everything to do that now. That's something I have to work on and set some boundaries and say, no, I'm sorry that this is an emergency, but it's because you didn't plan. It's become an emergency
Right.
and that's not my fault.
And I think that's really good. I mean, and we all want to matter, right? Like, we all want to know that we're adding value and that we're able to do the things we're really great at and help other people. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it becomes harmful when that's where you're getting that, instead of allowing God to be that source of assurance and confidence and purpose and fulfillment in us first, right? And then allowing that to overflow to them.
It can become an idol. Just like you said, it can
Absolutely.
be an idol. And I think too, one last thing before we move on to the next one is, especially for women, you guys are so okay. Most like stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. Most women are very selfless. They take care of everybody else first, and you're just kind of innately that's a motherly thing. You just want to take care of everyone and make sure everyone has their needs met, and but to a fault. We'll talk more about self-care here in a minute, but like it's okay to say no. You don't have to take care of everybody else first. Like you do need to take care of yourself. Kind of the oxygen mask principle on the airplane. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So really, then you can take care of everyone else because you're doing everything you need to be the best you. You're giving people the best you instead of giving everyone else the worst of you, the leftovers, running on fumes. Like that doesn't serve anybody. So doing what you need to do to take care of you to make sure everyone gets the best of you, that is better for everybody else. Everyone is better served when you're healthiest. So number 3 was around community, and it's so important to build community and to have people who really like know you on a deeper level, not just people that you talk to at church or a small group that's maybe just kind of like surface level. Like there needs to be a level of depth so that when someone sees something in you that's maybe uncharacteristic, or they can see that you're kind of headed towards burnout or a dangerous thing, that they can say something. There's that safety and comfort of like the relationship, that they know they can say this without jeopardizing the relationship, or even just saying like this, you're headed towards a burnout, you're headed towards a major thing. Like I love you enough, I care about you enough that even if you're mad at me for a while, I'm going to say this because it needs to be said. And it goes both ways to have that depth of relationship with people who can help pick you up when things are hard and be there when you're going through challenging things. Because we were really meant to live life together in community. We were not meant to do it alone.
Yeah, our society has definitely isolated us from having this true community. So we're connected to a lot of people, right? Like, we have thousands of followers, and I probably have 20 different conversations with 20 different people in some way. Like, I am very connected, right? But to have like that smaller group of people that are just your community, we've got our side by side people, like people we just do life with. And, this could look like, even just like if you were a part of a fitness community, like let's just use that as an example. Like I show up, we get stronger together, we encourage each other, and then I go home. Like it's just kind of that side by side. You have the people that you lead, because I believe there's a lot of value in connecting with and as mentors, and then the people that mentor you. So having those just relationships built around you, because like Nick said, we're literally not designed to do life alone. Like God saw fit for Adam to have someone else, so much so that he brought even to his life. And so to be connected with each other and with him. And I think that this is like such a huge one. So get plugged in with a small group at church, or even just like a small group of a Bible study that you host, or a fitness class that you can just be a part of. Like stay involved in community, because it really truly is our lifeline, and everything else doesn't matter. At the end of your life, people will not remember all the things you did, but the person you were in their life and the way that you impacted them.
This takes an investment. Like it's hard. And that's why a lot of people don't have it, and you won't have it by default. Like you have to build this, you have to invest in this. And if you don't have this right now, be that person. Like if you don't have a really close friend, or friends that you can really be your true self with and who know you on a deep level, you be the one to take that first step. We're all busy, and I think a lot of us crave this, but it's just kind of hard to break out of our natural rhythms and like to go out of our way to build this community. So you be the one that does it. Take that step, start reaching out, start investing in that, and you will get it back. Like we're just kind of
Yes.
wired that way for reciprocity. And sometimes it just takes someone like you, a leader, to step in to initiate that, to get it going.
Yeah. And it really can be so energizing spiritually. Like, even if you're burnt out or you're coming up on burnout or whatever, having those people to speak life into you and to encourage you and remind you of who you are and things you're created for, like that can energize us and take us out of that red zone as well, just spiritually.
Yeah. And if you don't have this in person, and maybe whether you've moved or whatever the reason might be, you could even do this over the internet. So I have some friends. I actually have one who lives 2 miles from me, but we're so busy and our schedules are kind of off sometimes that we end up just using a Marco Polo app, just a video app where we'll send stuff, and we meet when we can. And sometimes after the kids go to bed, we'll get together. But other times, like he's the one guy. I have two guys, but he's the one that I can, if doesn't matter what it is, I can go to him with that, and he does the same. He can come to me, and the hard stuff that I won't talk to anybody else about, he's the one that I can go to, and I don't let proximity, or I don't let distance get in the way. So don't let that be an excuse.
All right. Number 4, plan. I think we should be planning so much and pre-deciding. It's almost like we don't have the confidence to pre-decide because we don't have the boundaries to say no to the other things that might come along. All right. Or the self-control. Like for those of you that are like, oh, it's sparklier over here, right? We don't want to feel like we're trapped by our commitment. But I truly feel like if we will just put a little more intention into planning, like even just our days, it doesn't have to be like by the minute, but can I pre-decide what my week is going to look like, what my day is going to look like, what I want, for the future, like just putting some intentionality into planning.
Yeah, and I think even you could plan like certain days of the week or evenings. Like if a friend comes up and says, "Hey, do you guys want to go out to dinner?" Like, yeah, actually Thursday evenings are set for that. Or you could have chunks that are kind of, they're blocked out. Having that blocked in so that you don't say yes to some things that are like, yeah, let's just do it now. And then when the thing you really want to say yes to comes along, you can't because you've said yes to these other things. Because a yes to something is a no to something else. Protect those times. So maybe you have a date night that's set, like we only do this on this night. And if something else comes along, we put it somewhere else or we don't do it. But I love too what you said about just pre-deciding, that there's so much freedom in that. And going along with some of our other points, it frees up a lot of energy and mental capacity that like I don't have to decide in the moment. Or if it's something that requires willpower, pre-decide so that you don't have to decide when it's hard in the moment. You need to pre-decide, you know what, and I harped on alcohol earlier, and we'll discuss that more on one of these other points, but I'm not against it. I'm not for it. It's, if it's a thing in your life, then like you should probably deal with that. But to just pre-decide, you know what, I'm going to, or I'm not going to partake. So when I'm in the moment, if I've been struggling with drinking more than I should, I'm not relying on my willpower to, in the moment when I want one, say, yeah, I'm going to have a glass of wine. Instead, I've said, you know what? I already said I'm not going to, so I'm not going to. So
Yeah.
viewing willpower as a limited resource, because it is like every day you have a certain amount of willpower. Every decision you make depletes that. So by the end of the day, like, why is it so hard to say no to a cookie or dessert or something at the end of the day? Well, because we've used our willpower to make all these decisions throughout the day. When some of that you could pre-decide and not use up your willpower. So
Yeah.
something else to consider with that.
I like the idea of planned spontaneity, like just planned free time. So it's like, to me, that's freeing. It's like I have my work time and I have my free time. And it's like this afternoon, we have nothing planned. And I'm like, we could stay home and take a nap or we could go to the pool. Like I love the freedom in that. And I'm not throughout the week or day even trying to figure out when am I going to get to spend time with the kids or when am I going to get to rest? When am I going to get to, like, it's just there. Like it's just pre-planned. So I love pre-planning. We're not going to be willy-nilly. We're going to plan our willy-nilly. How's that? We'll plan willy-nilly time.
People are often either they love more spontaneity, and some people are planners and they hate spontaneity. And so whichever one you are, you just plan it. If you love planning, then just plan exactly what you want to do. And if you love spontaneity, plan the block to be spontaneous. And there you go. It's like it gives you that freedom that in the moment you're like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to want to go to the pool or if I'm going to want to go do something else. So in that moment, like I get to decide, but I still had that chunk of time that I didn't let anything else get scheduled into that chunk.
Yeah, which is what it's, so to me that's freeing. I understand like having the schedule and the plan and all of that, like to the minute, it's a little more freeing for some people, but for me I'm like I just like knowing that I have a choice.
The next one was prioritizing productivity and achievement over everything else. And this is a hard one for me because I do want to be productive and I do want to hit my goals or I want to achieve things, but not at the expense of everything else. And sometimes I can kind of let the goal or the achievement or the thing that I'm pursuing kind of get in the way and muddy the waters. That when you ask me what's really important in life, it's not how much I make and it's not material things and it's not achieving whatever. It's usually about relationships, with God, with my loved ones. So making sure that I'm not always prioritizing just getting more stuff done over the relationships with my kids. And like even this summer, here's a prime example. Morning times are my time to like be productive. I'm energized. My brain is functioning better. And I'm caffeinated. Like that's my best time to be creative. It's my best time to crank out like the harder stuff. My younger son loves to play games. He loves to just do stuff with me. And he is an early riser like me. So he caught that gene and he gets up early. And I mean, he's been this way for a long time. We're like, Dad, can we, like, as soon as he gets up, can we do stuff? Like, I just want to do something with you. And so there's the productive part of me that's like, man, this is my time to like really get stuff done. If I say my relationship with my kids is more important, what are my actions showing me? If you looked at my calendar or like what I'm actually doing, what does that say? And so I finally decided, you know what, but especially during the summer when they don't have school and stuff like that, he's like, Dad, can we hang out? I'm like, all right. So I made a deal as early as I can get up. And then at 7 o'clock is my cutoff time. Him and I will do something. Usually we play like a board game or we do something together. So as early as I can get up until 7 is my like prime time to get some stuff done. I take a break and I do something with him and I'm investing in that relationship. And when I'm old and gray on my deathbed, am I going to wish that I would have done more work during that window, or am I going to be glad that I invested in him? I think I'm going to be glad that I invested that in him. And so just that's just one example of like sometimes I want to prioritize what's really important in my life, what I say is really important in my life, and what I really know is important in my life over the short-term things that I'm trying to get done.
Yeah, it's really good. The only thing I have to add to this is you mentioned it, like know your green zones, like know those times and then build everything around that. So I am not green in the evenings. Right now I'm having to do a lot of work in the evenings because the kids are home. So my most productive time is like right now, like between like 9 and like noon to 1. Like that's when you're going to get the best of me when it comes to productivity. So prioritizing those green zones and like like I just need to get up a little bit earlier and then I'm cutting off at this time and then I can get back, into my still in my green, maybe moving into yellow zone. And that's going to help you shift. Like, what do I need to get done before 7 o'clock? What do I need to get done? What can I do in my yellow zone that doesn't require a ton of my mental energy and things like that? So prioritize those things so you can be productive, like go, like run fast, but also make sure it's in its right container.
One more example, because this is one that hits home for me. Being a drummer and musician, like part of my identity, this is a whole other issue, but part of my identity growing up was in drumming and the attention that I get from it. And it's just part of who I was. Like, weird as this sounds, I actually have a hard time worshiping, or I used to, when I'm not playing drums, because since age 8, I have played drums in church and I am 41. So I've played drums in church for a long time. And when I'm not behind a drum kit, I find it really difficult to, one, just to focus, and two, to I just feel awkward worshiping. So I've grown a lot in that, but all that to say, and especially when you're good at something and a church finds out, they're like, "We want you to play." And I went through this season of
Boundaries.
yeah. So this all kind of relates. There's several issues in here with this, but having a hard time saying no because I get validated through that, and I enjoy it too. Like, I love it, and I love using my gift in that way to help the body. But in the season that I'm in, trying to grow a business, and I'm just really busy. I've got a lot going on. And then being super busy on the weekend with church, there was just no like downtime and time with my kids. And so I finally had to just say, I just need to say no. Like, I can't play, which it pained me. Like, I love this. I enjoy it. It's fun. And I just had like this in this season, I just need to say no. And I'm going to prioritize my kids and my health over this. And it was hard, but it was good. And it was just picking that relationship. Like, my kids, they'll be older someday, and they'll do their own things, and I'll be bored on the weekend, and then I'll pick up drums again. But and I have started singing at church once, and occasionally, but still, like, it's not what it was, where it was like every weekend and most of the weekend. So just saying no to some things that are good, so I can say yes to the best thing right now in this season, and that's prioritizing right relationship with my kids, because someday they're going to be teenagers and not want to hang out, and then I'll come back to drums.
Okay, number 6 is prioritize play. So, making sure we're doing some of the things, more of the things that we really love. And again, it's just a pre-deciding. It's putting it on your calendar, saying no to things around it. It's hard because it's for us, and sometimes we don't feel like we deserve this time. So make sure you're doing the things that you love, that are just fun. They don't make you money, they don't make you friends. Like, it's just something you enjoy doing yourself. So for me, this looks like reading. I'm an avid reader. I love fiction and fantasy, and I mean, I read other things too, but like, that's where my brain goes for vacation. I love being outside. I love learning new things. So like cooking classes or painting or makeup, whatever it is, doing things that induce like a sense of just play and laughter. All of this is so healing for our burnt out souls, right? So making sure you're prioritizing play for you, like where you're getting to explore yourself. Like, because I feel like as we get older, like, we don't do this. Like, honestly, like, if we were sitting down, having a conversation and said, when's the last time you did something you wanted to do because it was fun? You went kayaking, or you went like something you wanted to do, not because somebody wanted to do it with you, or like you did it just because you wanted to. And sadly, many of us would have to really think hard on when the last time we did that was, right? So prioritize play for sure.
So the next one, number 7, was about flooding yourself with that constant stream of stimulation and information, always reaching for your phone. And I'm guilty of this. I find myself, I've got 10 seconds. I'm waiting for like something to load or whatever it is. And I'm like pulling my phone out. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Like, it's almost become so automatic now that, like, if you have a moment where something isn't like engaging, it's like, I got to pull my phone out and see what's going on. And so what I've been doing, well, one, I actually put on my screen, I made a graphic that has a goal that I'm trying to hit. It says, put the phone down and work on this. But just checking in with myself, and even asking the question, wait, why am I doing this? So why am I constantly reaching out for this thing? Why am I constantly checking in with stuff and trying to like keep my mind busy and stimulated? I mean, what am I trying to avoid? And just be more self-aware and just start asking the questions and see what comes up. Also with that, when we were doing the reverse thing, and I talked about like the news, and I always have to know what's going on. Like, you don't. And like, I actually don't read the news at all. I don't check headlines. I don't watch the news. And if something is big enough, I will hear about it. Someone will mention it, I'll hear about it, and then, I'll know what I need to know. But do I need to know about something that happened in Greenbow, Alabama forest? No, I don't.
Greenbow, Alabama.
Okay.
Can I do anything for like something that happened over in Sweden? Like, no. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be about like taking Christ to the nations. Like, I'm not talking about that. Even within that, what's my role in that? Well, I support missionary. I'm not the missionary, but I support missionaries. And like, I'm just saying, you don't have to know about everything, and especially things you can do absolutely nothing about, and just sit there and like ruminate on it and worry about it. That does nothing except make your life worse.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you some really practical things I do. Either will have a screen time on my password for the apps that tend to do that. I don't believe our souls and minds are designed to know what's happening all over the world. I just don't think so. And I think we, one, have become digitally addicted. Like, I think that it's an addiction. That's what makes you grab for your phone. So heal your habits in that area. So some things I do, like I said, is set a screen time. My child has the password, so I have to go ask them for the password, or I just take them off of my phone. That's where like you said, you just reach for it and grab for it. But you've got to do something that's going to heal your habits with digital things, because that's where we're getting this flood of information. And there's no way around it. Like, you just have to heal your relationship with screens and the news and the feed and constant stimulation. It's okay to be unstimulated for longer than a period of time. So this is where like meditation and focused physical work, walking and yoga and things like that is going to help.
Yeah. And even like, was it point number one, talking about like mental rest? And this is part of that, like not letting your mind rest because you're constantly doing something or engaging in something. So next time you catch yourself with like 5 minutes, or you're waiting for the elevator, or you're pumping gas, like whatever it is, just stop and just let your brain like wander. Like, it's actually pretty helpful and healthy to build in a little bit of this. Like, I just let my brain wander. Sometimes you'll get really great insights and ideas, and sometimes it's just like, it just feels good to like give your brain a break. Number 8 was self-care, and you need to prioritize taking care of yourself. And I don't mean like bubble baths and massages, although those are nice too, but doing the things that really feed you, your body, your mind, and your soul, making those things a priority. And so like, you're reaching out, you're helping other people out of the overflow and not just leaking out of your bucket because there's holes in your bucket. So constantly filling up your tank so that you can be your best self for everybody else.
And I think sometimes we think of self-care as like bubble baths and pedicures and manicures and a massage. Those things are great. I'm not saying that those are wrong, but like, I actually sat down one day and I put it in my kitchen so that my family would know. Because my husband kept saying, like, how can I love you best? It was right after my dad passed away. And I made a list of things that feel loving and caring to me, so that I and they can help me care for myself in that season of loss. And so I wrote out like supplements, self-care, sunshine, meditation, silliness, like that feels loving to me in this season. So maybe make a list of things that feel like, whether you're doing it or someone else, make a list of things that feel like loving and caring, and pick the ones off your list that you can meet those needs for yourself that aren't just bubble baths and pedicures, right? So meditation, boundaries are self-care. Saying no is self-care. You're saying that I don't have it to give. I need to nurture myself in this way and get some energy back in my energy bank. So saying no is self-care. So recognizing what self-care is and specifically what it is to you.
Going back to the client that I mentioned earlier, she has this really great approach to self-care, and saying all the things that we just said. It's not necessarily bubble baths and all that stuff, but really you can narrow down a few things that, let's say you have 5 minutes that you could do. And I think she has 5 categories too, but I'll link to that episode too, because it's quite helpful. But it doesn't have to be a huge chunk of time. A lot of people are like, I just don't have time. Well, it doesn't have to be an hour. If you have 5 minutes, and getting outside in the sun for 5 minutes, like, that can be really refreshing. And when you have these little pockets of time, instead of grabbing your phone and scrolling, You could do something like, hey, I'm going to jump on my bike and like ride through the neighborhood because that's really fun. I'm moving my body. I'm getting some sunlight. I'm getting fresh air. So there are things that you can figure out. And some of this goes back to when you were a kid. What are some of the things you did as a kid that you just thought was really fun? Like, did you dance? Do you like music? There's something you can do even in just short little bursts throughout the day that feed your soul, feed yourself. Spend some time thinking about that, and I'll link to that to an episode that might help you do those things too. So number 9, we've already kind of touched on this, but don't numb with things like doom scrolling, drugs or alcohol or Netflix, or just staying so busy to avoid something. So if you're feeling this unsettled feeling, or you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, and you're tempted to numb it with something, catch yourself before you wreck yourself. So come on and tickety-tack yourself before you wreck yourself. Lean into that. Think about it, and try to figure out, like, why am I? Even if your decision is still like, you know what, I'm still gonna have a glass of wine. At least check in with yourself first to talk about why. Why do I feel like I need that? And it can help you address it and maybe change it for the future.
Number 10 is a good one. It is asking for help or hiring help. So sometimes when we get burnt out, like we don't even know what we need. We don't even know, but we know that we need help, right? So maybe looking at ways that people can come in and support you in that way. And you may have to hire them, but it's an investment. It's giving you your time, your mental health back, right? So hiring someone to help in the house, hiring someone to help in your business, whatever that is, but like, do not do it all on your own. Again, we are not meant to do life in all of the ways on our own. So hire some help, or trade out some help, for things that just overwhelm you that may not be overwhelming for other people.
Number 11 was about neglecting your spiritual life and your relationship with God. And I know that sometimes I get in those seasons where I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling burned out. And like, there's just part of me that's like, I just don't feel like it. I just don't feel like sitting with my Bible. I don't really feel like praying. Or I might pray a little, but like sometimes I'm just fighting this weird feeling of like, I know I need this, but like, I just don't feel like it. All right, well, let's put on our big boy pants or big girl pants and stop just living based on our feelings. Let's do what we know is good for us and will nourish our souls, because we know that our relationship with God is what brings fulfillment and meaning. And so you just need to decide, like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to make this a priority because I know it'll be good for me. And it can look different at different seasons. It doesn't have to be, I got to read this many scriptures and then I need to pray and then I need to meditate. And then like, okay, it can be listening to a church online video or something, or whatever. Like, it can change with what season that you're in, but do something to nourish your relationship with God, and don't skip out on church. Like, church helps. Church is for us.
Yeah, I feel like for this, I would challenge you or encourage you, if you're kind of in that place. And I think we all, if we're just really honest, get to those places. But just like your relationships in life, sometimes you have to try new things or new ways of connecting. So the same is true with God. Like, figure out something new. Something I recently have started doing is, now that I can walk again, is I will listen to my daily reading plan, like while I'm walking, and then I'll turn on a worship song. And then the last couple of minutes of my walk, I'll just say some prayers. And that's new for me. It's different than just sitting down with my Bible. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but get creative about how you connect with God, because it really is the ultimate source of energy and life and well-being.
So next, sleep. And this is one I struggle with, but you need to prioritize sleep and rest. Our bodies need it. We all need it, maybe different amounts, but make it a priority. And you might need to do some things to maybe track, so you can get like an Aura ring or a smartwatch of some sort, or a Whoop or something, where you can start to get some stats to see how different things affect you. And then just start researching, like, how do I get better sleep? And I'll link to a person who I found who has a lot of really great resources for this, and doing it in like a natural way. So I'm not going to go over all the stuff, because there's quite a few things you can do that are really easy to sleep better, but I'll link to that in the show notes. So if sleep is an issue for you, check out her stuff, and it's really helpful.
Honestly, just working on healing some of those habits that we've already talked about, like, food, exercise, our phone, our screen habit, like all of that, just putting some focus into that is going to naturally help you in this area. But sleep is king. It's 100%, especially as we age, sleep is king. So make it happen, guys. So number 13 was playing safe, essentially. So what we want to do is give ourselves opportunity to step into what we feel like God has called us to do and welcome failure. We want to invite failure because when we fail, we move forward, right? I always say, you probably heard me say it here even, you win or you learn. And to me, anytime you can learn something, that's a gift. Anytime you're growing your brain muscle, that's a gift. And so failure is feedback. It is what's working, what's not working, where do I need to tweak some things. So let's stop playing small, stop playing safe, just because we're afraid of failure or how we're going to be perceived or disappointing God, like whatever that underlying might be. I want to challenge you to live full out, play full out, because when you are walking in your purpose, it gets so crystal clear, and your the buzz around you it's gone, right? So you're just so focused that it's almost like your brain and your heart can just relax, because like, I'm right where I need to be. I don't need to be over here doing all these things and knowing all these things. Like, I'm right where I need to be. And there's just such an assurance that comes when we are walking in our calling, in our purpose.
So number 14 was about living selfishly. And I think it's just so clear when you've lived in a very selfish manner, how short term it might feel better, but it leads to being very unfulfilled. And that there's just something about the way God created us and the world to operate is to put others first, and to not just live for yourself. And it can be very, very fulfilling when you're doing that, and not to your detriment. And it's not about, back to like the boundaries thing and saying yes to everything. We don't mean that. If you look at Jesus, what did Jesus do? He was very about other people, but he still did what he needed to do. He found solitude. He did what he had to do to stay as healthy as he could, but he also did a lot for other people and really lived unselfishly.
Yeah, it can be really energizing. That's what we're talking about here is energy management, right? When you are from a healthy place, like Nick said, with boundaries and all of that. But when you are using the gifts that God has given you to serve people around you, it is so fulfilling and so energizing. So this is definitely a way to avoid burnout, is by using those gifts and tools that you have to serve other people.
The next one, 15, was about just pursuing more, trying to get more stuff. And like, this is just kind of the human condition, is we always want what we don't have. We always want more than we have. So it doesn't matter how much you get, you will always want more. And it's not just stuff, although it's definitely, definitely around stuff, but relationships and experiences and just whatever it is. Like, if you're looking for things and something other than God to be like your main fulfillment and reason for living, none of it will ever satisfy, and you will always long for more.
And I want to challenge you in this way to minimalize some of these things. If you're stressed out and overwhelmed by all of the things in your house, get rid of stuff. If you're stressed out and overwhelmed, like we talked about your calendar, get rid of things off your calendar. Right now, I'm in a season, I'm only teaching 2 classes a week. This is the least I have ever taught, ever. And that's just the season I'm in to avoid burnout. So I'm teaching less. I'm empowering more leaders to teach for our studio and our online team, all of that, because that's just the season I'm in. I don't want to keep adding to my plate or to my home or to my business, like what I'm physically able to pour out. So I want to challenge you, like, make a list of all the things that maybe overwhelm you, things you do, things you have, and just start making your way. It can feel really overwhelming, but the more minimalistic you are in this way, and this goes with, again, the things you're consuming physically and mentally, the things you own in your home, the things that you're doing with your physical energy, what can you take off of your plate today, right now, and start minimalizing those things?
The next one, number 16, was comparison and always comparing. So we want to drop comparison and practice gratitude. Let's get some vitamin G, is a guy that I heard
I
referred
like
to it.
that.
And gratitude is the best way to offset this feeling of, even from the previous point, of always wanting more. Because there's a part of us that's just kind of wired that way, the broken part of us. And instead of focusing on what we don't have, we focus on what we do have. And it really brings a lot of peace and joy. Whereas just comparing to what you don't have and what other people have that you don't, it just steals your joy and robs you of that. So knock it off.
Number 17 was about constantly being in a sprint season or a grind season, a hustle season, grit, more grit, right? And so I think looking at the season that you're in, is this a season where I have the fuel in the tank to run a little faster? But also looking at the next season of, okay, but when am I going to rest? So building in and recognizing when we can run fast and when we can and when we're going to rest, because not every season can be a grind season.
So next is organization and systems. And I know some people are like they have an aversion to this, and they sometimes will throw up excuses like I'm not techie or I'm just not organized. Like, well, you could be. You could be more organized than you are. You don't have to look at someone else's, like, who's that, Marie Kondo
Oh,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Thank this thing for giving you joy and say goodbye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there's definitely finding, what works for you, but you could be more organized than you are, and you could put systems in place just to make things easier and less taxing on you.
There's a saying that I heard before called people over processes. And this is where we put people first. And we've talked a lot about this, especially in the first part of this, about prioritizing people over our productivity. But I think in this way, Nick, you do this really well with systems and organization. It's just very natural for you. And for people like me, it can feel overwhelming. But I found the more systems and organization I have in place, I can actually allow those processes to give me more space, grace, and time and love and energy for people, right? So, like, my processes are actually helping me love and serve people even better.
Yeah, and I think this really just comes down to making an investment up front, which it does take an investment in time, potentially money, and energy and brain power, and that's why a lot of people avoid it. But then later they pay for it because without that it's a lot harder. So taxes is a great example. There are some people who just don't track stuff. And then come tax time, they're panicking, and put in a ton of hours and time and they're trying to find stuff and it's just super stressful. Well, how about you invest a little bit of time up front to figure out how to track stuff in a way that during tax time is really easy. And so that might be finding a system to track, like to do your bookkeeping. And it might be coming up with a way like I'm going to scan receipts. And yeah, it's annoying to get the receipt and have to scan it and upload it, but then I'm done. And so like that's what I do is if I buy something for the business, right away, scan it, upload it to Dropbox to the folder where I save it all, and then I'm done.
I'm like sitting here like shrinking because I'm like, it's me. He's talking to me. Like, but you're so right, because the things that overwhelm us in a macro way, like taxes, is a great example. I mean, we can go 10 other ways with this too, but it's like, if I'll just build the system and do it on the front end, I'm not going to be overwhelmed or burn out, like, in tax season. So
You can just look at anything in your life and just think like, is there a way that this could be easier? Like just ask that question. How could this be easier? And just start doing stuff. Like I don't always know what. I just know I need to do something different. I'm not sure how. So sometimes I'll play with, would a spreadsheet help track something, or is there just a better way that I can do this thing? And a lot of times just asking that question will help the wheels start turning. And you don't have to have like the perfect thing right away. So with taxes, you might think, again, it's just easy example. Like you want to have this perfect system that has everything just all built out and it's amazing. Well, maybe you don't start there. Maybe something is better than nothing, and you can iterate and get there and eventually figure out what works best. But sometimes you just don't know. And what I'll do is I'll just try something like, oh, I think this could be different. So let me try using a note for tracking this stuff. Silly example, your shopping list. Instead of trying to keep it all up here, just use a note in your phone with a checklist and then like check it off when you buy it. Or putting a notepad with a magnet on the fridge so that when you're at the fridge and realize, oh, we're out of this thing, let me write it down right away. Done. Like that's an example of a system or just getting more organized. So it can be really simple things like that. Just using your brain for less and using a system or a process or a tool or a piece of paper to get stuff out of your head.
yeah, and if you don't know how to do those things, someone does. So this might be where you hire someone to come help you get organized on the front end. Again, it's another investment financially in this way, but the dividends pay so well, right? Like you're getting this energy stored back up.
So number 19 was about being worried and anxious and like just dwelling on that and coming up with the worst case scenario. And this is an area that I've struggled in, especially working with a coach that I previously worked with, where we were talking about something and he's like, do you realize you just told me for the last 20 minutes why this won't work? Can you flip that and start telling me how maybe this could work? And like, that was a really life-changing moment. And there's some books that I can recommend that are helpful too. One was Psycho-Cybernetics, which is a horrible title, but it's an amazing book. But there are things you can do to flip that and look at what are the ways this thing might work, or what's the good way this thing might go. Instead of always looking at the worst case scenario, let's look at the best case scenario, or even like what's the likely scenario. But just looking at more of the good and the positive, and not ruminating or focusing on just the negative and something that hasn't even happened yet. You're just thinking about what could happen and focusing on that negative thing. Also, sometimes there is an element of attracting the thing that you focus on, and you can attract more of the stuff you don't want by focusing on it. Like, it just doesn't help worrying about something like, oh, this might go bad, and then what? And then this will happen, and then this will happen. Like, flip that. Let's focus on how might this be amazing, and how just focus on the good and not so much on the worry.
Number 20 was about perfection. I think so many of us struggle with perfectionism. And honestly, like I've been living so much by like done is better than perfect. As I'm learning these new skills, I'm trying to just be a better entrepreneur, business owner, leader, all of those things. It's so imperfect. It's so messy and it's so imperfect. And so I think when we can step outside of that, and for me, like when I feel myself slipping into that perfectionism, there's some pride there. Like I need to be perfect. And it's like, or I can do what I can do with my capacity and allow God to do what he can do beyond what I'm able to do, so that people can truly see him and not how perfect, which doesn't exist, by the way. Spoiler alert, perfection doesn't exist on this side of heaven, but allow God to be seen through what I'm able to offer with my limitations and my capacities. So if you're a perfectionist or recovering perfectionist, let yourself off the hook, right? Like just go right into whatever that next step is, even if it's not perfect, even if it's wobbly, even if it's messy, because that's how we grow. That's how we avoid being burnt out, by trying to just get it right, perfectly right all the time. And we're not going to.
Yeah. And this is an area that I really struggle with as a recovering perfectionist. And, there are things, depending on what it is, there are some things that maybe, okay, I do want these things not to be perfect, but to put in the extra effort to make it as good as it can be. And then there are some things where it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth the effort. So just make it good enough and move on. So the next one was about procrastination and sometimes even distracting yourself from things that move the needle, because a lot of times those things are hard, and they're things that are going to force you outside your comfort zone. And again, we often will avoid those things. We don't like to feel uncomfortable, so we often seek comfort. But it's usually the things that make you uncomfortable or what help you grow and what help you get to the next level in the areas you're wanting to grow. So let's not avoid the hard things. Let's not avoid the uncomfortable things and kind of procrastinate and just push them off, or stay busy with things that are easier but don't move the needle. Instead, let's dig into those things that are hard and uncomfortable and do them sooner than later. Just get them done, get them out of the way, and then you can move on.
There's a great book about procrastination. It's called Eat the Frog. It's such a weird concept, but it's essentially just doing the things that weigh heaviest on you first before the rest of the day happens. So it's not just constantly lingering over you. So like get them done. So what do I need to do to get done? Or what can I delegate so that it can be done and not have to think about it? So when you find yourself in that procrastination state, like just eat the frog, right? Like just get it done, or delegate it to get done, or decide if it needs to be, Nick, you say this a lot, like, does it need to just be deleted? What do you say? Like,
Yeah, delegate what needs to be delegated or deleted
or done.
or done. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
And part of this too is the accountability piece. You might need some accountability on some of the bigger things. And so you can get that through a coach, through a mentor, through a friend. But just some sort of accountability can help when you're trying to do things that move the needle. And this could even be like exercise. Whatever those things that are hardest for you to do first, like do them first, so that your days gets easier. Like do the hard stuff first. The rest of the day gets easier because you can do the easier things. And that also falls into like the energy management thing, like mental energy, making sure you're doing the things in the time where you're best suited to do those things.
And our last one was about avoiding God's calling on your life. So here's the really real truth is God has a design for your life. He has a plan for your life. And I know we see this on coffee mugs and we hear this through preachers and all of that, but like it's really true. Like you're here by design, on purpose, for a purpose, with a purpose. And I think sometimes we forget that because of all of the other 21 things that we've even addressed today, like can just get in the way and cloud that truth. God has a calling for your life. He's got plans for you, not only for you personally, but for you to do and share his love and his grace with those around you who may not know him and bring them closer to him. And it can be scary. It is scary. It's very scary to let your little light shine sometimes because people don't want the lights turned on to some of their darkness sometimes, and it can irritate them or be too bright for them or whatever that is. And so I get it and I understand, but this to me would probably be like the most ultimate, because once you are clear on what it is that God has designed for you, actually, I'll back up and say, once you are clear on who God has said you are and you learn to live from that identity, that truth, it becomes so much, I don't want to say easier, but more motivating, if you will, to step into this plan, this calling that he has for your life. So don't skip this. Don't play small. I know it's easier. It's so easy for me to say that, but I can actually say that with a lot of conviction because there are so many times that I've had to step into the next thing that he's called me to when I don't know how. I don't know. I don't have the I'm not equipped to do it. I just really don't want to do it, whatever it is. But I can tell you with so much confidence that it's 100% so worth it. It's so worth it to live by God's design than my own, because everything else kind of falls into place. When I know who I am, I know what to do. And when I'm doing that to the best of my ability, it seems like everything else becomes it's easier for me to say no. It's easier for me to put boundaries around the things that steal from that truth. Right. So this is really an important one. Like God has a calling for your life. Step into it.
And it's probably going to be hard. Like, I don't think he calls us in general. I don't think he calls us to do really easy stuff because then we don't need him. Look at so many times through the Bible, God called people to do things and it was the unlikely person. And it was something that they couldn't do in their own power, where it was clear God was working through them and God is glorified. So yeah, it's scary and it's hard. Like that's just the way it is. And step out of your comfort zone and you do what you can do and you trust God to do what only he can do.
So looking, Nick, at our list, like what are the things that are kind of highlighted for you, like your tendencies and kind of like, okay, that's an area I really need to lean into to avoid burnout or to even kind of get rid of some of the burnout I'm already feeling?
So for me, I usually err on the side of pushing too hard and not resting enough. And especially if there's a lot going on, cutting things that are life giving when I feel like I don't have the time. Usually I shouldn't say usually, past Nick, because lately I've not done this. So I've grown in this area. In the past, it would be exercise. Like, oh, I just don't have time to work out. I just need to get more done. And so I would cut workouts and then I wouldn't eat as well. And it's a spiral for me that when I don't work out, everything else just kind of slides. But as long as I'm doing that, and then I have to force myself to make sleep a priority because I will often, even sometimes at night, I'll come in and, we'll put the kids to bed and I'll come in and knock a few more things out. I mean, sometimes that's just the season I'm in. And like, I have to do this to get done what needs to get done or to get to this goal that I'm trying to push towards. But I am trying to build in more of a healthy rhythm of building in rest, building in fun to avoid that. So usually that's me is I tend to not rest and push myself a little bit too hard and not sleep as much as I need to. And then that just kind of puts fuel on the
Trickles.
fire in the
Yeah.
wrong direction. of,
We're lighting the wrong fire.
yeah.
Well, and I think there is something to be said for sometimes getting some of those items off your list can allow your mind, especially your subconscious mind, to rest. So I think kind of knowing the difference, but for me, it's just putting parameters around it, like I'm going to have this done by tonight. If I need to stay up till midnight, I'm going to do it. But then it's off my radar until next month when I need to do it again or whatever. So it's like, there is that balance and that's hard to walk. And that's why I think these conversations are really important to help us, move through that. Let's close this out. I want to give you guys some action steps. If we were working together, if you and I were just having this conversation and we just went through all of this and you're like, I'm burnout, I feel apathetic, I feel lethargic, all these things, here's what I would have you do. So I want you to listen to this part and maybe even Grab a notebook if you're in a place to do that, or get in your notes app. I want you to review the list, right? All the things we just talked about, review the list. And then I want you to highlight at each one that really resonates with you. And there's no shame. Look, if you highlight 18 of the 22, no shame, no judgment. You can't take that next step if you don't even know what step you need to take or which direction you need to go, right? So go through, highlight them all without shame. And you're going to just, I would even say put it in yellow, put it in one color. And then I want you to go back through the ones that you highlighted, and I want you to mark the top 3. So these are the 3 we're going to look at and focus on for the next quarter, right? We're going to develop a plan. Again, if we were just doing this one-to-one, this is what I would do with you. We're going to develop a plan. All right, so these are the things that are the top 3 that really need to be addressed right now. What are we going to do to start working towards, betterment and all of that in the next 12 weeks? So prioritize and work on 1 per month over the next quarter, right? So that way it feels just a little more bite-sized. So it's kind of like pulling everything out of your closet, right? And then you have to look and be like, all right, now these need to go in sections. What am I going to keep? What am I going to put back? What am I going to give away? What am I going to throw away? That's what we're doing. So you're going to mark your top 3 in one color. In a different color, you're going to mark them all in one color. Go top 3 a different color, and then 1 that you're going to start working on this month, right? So you guys do this work, and you're going to either help get out of burnout season or avoid it in the future.
All right. Well, friend, I hope you found that helpful. And if you did, can you hit that like button? Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes, and we'll catch you on the next one.